Welcome to the Harm Reduction Report. This is Willard T. Belly.
Here with your pal Cal.
And we are recording live for the first time in the actual Logos Radio KEQQ station. Isn't this a great place to be?
Yep, it's an honor to be here. Super excited to be here with some professional equipment. We got mics and headphones on, and we're in the soundproofed room, and we got the equipment and everything. It's exciting. It's awesome.
Yes, Noah worked really hard building this room. I know he showed it to me a year or more ago, and it was still cool, but I don't think it had these awesome glowy underglow lights on the table. I wish the good people could see this.
Yeah, it's cool. And then we got these bungee cord chairs. I've never seen a chair like this.
Yeah.
It's very ergonomic, very comfortable.
Yes, and we got the whole building to ourselves. It's Wednesday night, January 17th. We are recording, and this is going to air next Tuesday, and then the week after that. One thing we are trying to do here more on the Harm Reduction Report is connect more with the community. I think this marks a good milestone for us, Cal, because we are in the studio. We've been recording most of these episodes on my cell phone or on the other microphone that Noah gave us.
Yeah, sitting on a couch in a living room.
Last week, the episode of the Harm Reduction Report that's airing right now, this week, is the live audio that we recorded and broadcasted live. That was really our first live thing. It wasn't a standard episode. We were broadcasting live from a community event downtown at the Empire Arts Center last week, and that event was sponsored by Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Dakota, as well as the City of Grand Forks Public Health Department and some other sponsors. What was really cool about that is we got a lot of feedback, and it suddenly struck us that people were listening.
A lot of people, yeah. 11,000 people were tuned in.
Noah said it was 11,500 people were listening on KEQQradio.com. So we're tuned into the internet stream of the live station. I guess it's not possible, or you have to ask. I don't think he knows how many people are actually listening to us in their car radios or on the actual radio in other ways. I don't know if that is tracked or not. Okay. I have to ask Noah again, but he said for sure it was 11,500 people were tuned in. Maybe 500 of those people weren't real or something.
That's an inspiring number, though.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. That's Noah put it into perspective. There's 50, 60,000 people in Grand Forks. 11,000 of them were listening to our broadcast, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive, which is very inspiring to me, and I'm sure to you, that people are listening and they're considering our ideas, and we're on track to open up this live call-ins so we can even have more feedback back and forth and engagements. It's really awesome.
Yeah, and Noah's a good inspiration because he's his passion is technology, and especially Linux operating system. Again, you should watch the Ask Noah show. You'll learn more than you want to know. and it's something that I don't think most people, period, know that much about. And so if we're talking about harm reduction, which may also be something that a lot of people don't know about, or at least don't talk a lot about, in that sense, we maybe kind of mirror Noah's passion. He's talking about something and he's popularizing it in our home community. Noah is a native G-Funker, just like I am. And I'm not sure how long you have to live here to be an official G-Funker, but I'm pretty sure you count as one too.
All right.
How long have you lived in Grand Forks?
It's been about 4 years now. 4 years.
Okay. Yes. Well, I think that's plenty of time to consider yourself legit.
Yeah, I feel like it. I feel like I've set down roots and kind of, established myself and done a lot, accomplished a lot here. So
this is your home.
Yeah, I consider it one of my homes. Yes, absolutely, a home. It is a home.
Yes. So Noah, I respect him so much just because he is a G-Funker and he grew up here. I'm glad we're involved.
Yeah, me too. It's a super awesome. This is so much fun. I'm having a blast, and it's a great honor to be invited into the studio. Here we can communicate our ideas just like Noah.
And dude, I can just hear you so well in the microphone.
Yeah, we got this quality equipment.
Wow, we got these big headsets on too, and you can hear. You hear that?
Yeah, I can hear my finger dragging across the table. Really, these mics get everything.
Yeah, this is fun. I'm having fun. And last week's event was a good milestone for us too, because it was our first live thing, though we weren't doing a lot of live talking. Actually, you were. So just to describe the event, if you haven't heard of it, what was happening last week, again, it was the city and these other groups were screening a documentary that Prairie Public Television produced with Blue Cross Blue Shield called The Opioid Epidemic in North Dakota, something like that. And it interviewed some people who have had opioid use disorder and have had addictions and from North Dakota, and certain things they are doing to, I guess, to be the solutions. And it kind of focused on medication-assisted treatment, do you think?
Yeah.
And the city, they screened this 25 or so minute video, which you can watch online. We will post the link to it in the next description when we post this online. But they screened the video, and then they had a panel. And there were 4 panelists, including 2 moderators. And Cal, your pal Cal, sitting right here, was one of the panelists. And you got to share your perspective up there with everybody. Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had a blast. Going into the event, I was very intimidated. It was very nerve-wracking. I was very nervous, especially when you're up there in front of a live audience, broadcasting live to who knows how many people. In this case, it turned out to be 11,000. It's very intimidating speaking about such a stigmatized topic, admitting to people, my past involvement with drugs, the problem I had with drugs. So that was very intimidating at first. But once we got into it and we started asking questions and answering them, there was a lot of fluidity. It was moving along nicely, and I feel like I got some good points across, and the moderators were asking good questions, and everyone was supportive. I felt like support in the room from the audience and the panelists and everything.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be really wonderful, really fun. I'm so glad I was able to make it. I'm so glad I cut my travel plans a day and a half short. It's not a big deal. 1 day and a half to participate in this wonderful event was really good.
Yeah. And I have to say that it started out on a rocky foot because they had me running the sound at the event. So I had Noah's fancy box, and we were, broadcasting live to the radio, but also I was in control of the microphone panel back there, the sound board. And for anyone who doesn't have sound guy experience, it's it's hard. And my friends who have a lot more experience than me probably would have done a lot better job, including Noah. But it's what my friend calls getting sound guy experience points when, as happened 3 or 4 times during that event, something goes wrong and all the microphones start like screaming at each other. Like,
yeah.
That happened, and thankfully, actually, Noah was helping. He was here at the station while we were there, and when the microphones, because of me in the Empire, were freaking out, he would cut in and like, whoa, let's dial that audio back. They're having some difficulties. That's live radio, people. Let's okay, they're cutting back in now.
That was awesome teamwork. I'm glad you were there on radio doing the audio stuff. I'm glad you were in the room participating in that event with me and with us. And it's awesome that Noah was here, kind of moderating the mics and the equipment, the technical.
That was really fun, and it made me feel better about my mistakes because I knew that we had all the support. Noah was listening somewhere, and he had my back, and you were in the room. That made me feel good too. And actually, I felt bad because your opening comment, I couldn't get your microphone on, and so people missed. At least I was in the very back. I didn't hear most of what you said away.
But turns out that opening comment was not my best. Actually, that was when I was the most nervous, and there was a second where I was pausing for like 5 to 10 seconds, and I lost my train of thought. And I almost said that I lost my train of thought, but then my girlfriend Victoria was like, "Oh no," and I didn't even notice. It looked like you were trying to think of the right wording. So I'm glad I didn't. I just kind of thought, and I was like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to go with it."
I thought that pause was like, "Is this microphone going to come back on? Should I wait until it comes back on?" And I was, I realized that I didn't pay almost any attention to anything that was going on because I was so focused on just the microphone board.
Yeah, that's what you had said.
On the soundboard. And so when I listened to the whole thing again afterwards, that was not easy for me to do because I just knew that these moments were coming, these horrible moments, and I had to relive all my anxiety about having them happen. But they happened, and in listening to it again, I actually heard what you said, and I heard what everyone else said, and it was great. I mean, I was really excited about how it all went.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until I listened to it again that people did say some good things, and especially you. I thought you did super well.
Sweet, thanks.
I had fun. And it was really thanks to Michael Dulitz, who is probably my favorite city person. And I don't know if that's an inappropriate term, city person, but he works for the city. He is, again, Grand Forks Public Health Department's Opioid Response Project Coordinator, whose work is funded for a little while yet, and he is arranging a lot of things, including just, I think, a few days before the Empire event, he had given, or maybe a week or two before the Empire event, he gave, the city arranged for the University Police Department at UND to start carrying naloxone. And I was in his office before the day he was going to go bring them over to the police department and do this training with them. And I saw the little cases. You probably saw them on the news too. If you saw that story they did, I think DAZ did something on it. The little cases where they had naloxone in them, and he showed me all these other things. He told me about this needs assessment that the city is doing, basically a survey, and it's to ask questions like, what do you know about needle exchanges? Do you think you know people in Grand Forks who would benefit? Syringe exchanges. I shouldn't call it needle exchanges. I'm trying to get all these terms right. I'm learning a lot. Anyway, Michael has done all these things, and it's really fun and really cool, and he also arranged that event, or he did a lot of the arranging for it anyway, setting up things. And he was standing next to me at the soundboard when I needed a friend, and that was very nice of him too. I'm going to see him tomorrow, and we're going to chat about this trip I just went on. And so I just got back from Minneapolis an hour ago, and I haven't really told you about it yet, Cal, but I'd like to. I wish you were there because we had such a wonderful time. So the city is supporting me to make a video for them, and it's going to include a lot of people who are from Grand Forks or who still live here, and interviews about stigma. Really, it's about stigma of all kinds. It began as stigma as it relates to drug use explicitly, and I ended up interviewing a bunch of my friends and realizing that they all had very different sort of stigma stories, but at the very least they all definitely applied under the banner of public health related stories. Some of them are drug related, some of them are drinking related, all of them are harm reduction related.
Okay.
And because they all include stigma, and reducing stigma is reducing harm, I think. So I had a really fun time, and I'm excited now to interview some more friends who are here. I went to Minneapolis because a lot of my friends who were from here, I went to high school with or went to college with, have moved to the cities. And so I drove down there to interview some of them, and it went really well. And I feel really good about it. I was nervous, that maybe the idea wouldn't really pan out or something, but I haven't looked at the footage yet either, so I shouldn't count my chickens. I got to make sure it's all good.
Yeah.
There's still some more interviews I want to get, but the interviewing went really well, and I had fun, and I feel good about it. So I'm excited to show you. And actually, Cal, I would like to interview you for the project too.
Cool.
Yeah. So
I'm in.
brace yourself.
I'm in. Yeah, I like how Michael Dulitz described it after the event, that he's, we're moving the needle a little bit at a time. Moving the syringe, I suppose, to be correct. Moving it just a little bit, just by talking about it. Each event, each documentary, each reaching out to people and interviewing people. We spread the support and the perspective and help to reduce the stigma and make it safe for people to talk about.
I really wish I would have had the list of emails pulled up here so we could talk about them specifically and cite them. But after the Empire event, and Noah looked up, he saw 11,000 people were watching. Even better marker of our of the impact of that, I guess, or of who was really watching it, was all of the emails we got afterwards.
Yeah.
The station got tons of emails, like 30. Which I think is tons, because each one of them said I know somebody who's struggling with addiction or with stigma, and your event is really great, and we're gonna find help now because we know that there is help available. And a lot of them, Noah said, half of the emails we got explicitly mentioned you, Cal, saying that guy Cal, he's I know someone like him, or like my brother's like him, or my somebody that I know, or my son, and I'm showing these people what Cal said because I want them to know, and I think it's important.
That was super inspiring. That's super inspiring. The overwhelmingly positive feedback, just to know that we did something that people appreciate, and that I appreciate that. Like you said, each one of those 30 emails was almost like a thank you. It was a gesture of support, a gesture of keep up the good work, and keep talking about it, and keep telling people, and it's really awesome. One of the things in the event that I wanted to I didn't get to mention this in the event, but Dr. Faust, one of the moderators, had asked a question like, what do I, as a recovering addict, want the audience members and other addicts out there to know? What wasn't coming to mind that I had prepared in advance actually was how a large part of my recovery is due to my support network, to my family. Having the intellectual support of my family, the financial support of my family, the emotional support of my family, and my friends, of course, as well. But having that great support from the people around me was really a huge determining factor in my recovery. And a lot of people don't have that support. Some people don't have supportive friends or supportive family. Their friends and family have that stigma in their mind of a drug addict is a drug addict. They're not, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time helping them recover. So the point I was hoping to address, and which I now have the opportunity to address today, is that by reducing the stigma, the community can serve as that support network for people that don't have that olive branch, that helping hand up. As I mentioned, I had a helping hand out of my addiction. The people that don't have that helping hand, the community needs to offer that helping hand. And the reason it's important for the community to do that is because addiction is not a problem that is isolated to the addicts and their families themselves. Addiction is something that impacts all of community and all of society. So, as a community, we all need to work together to bring people back into contributing to the community.
Yeah. And so the fact that you were up on stage talking about your history with addiction and okay, well, obviously the thing I'm thinking about support was you were interrupted by applause at one point.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Which I listened to the tape again, and there was only one other time that whole night where one of the other panelists was sort of applauded for saying something. Not to compare you against the other panelists and say anything about who's a better panelist or something. Right. I'm just very proud of you for that small fact that you were straight up applauded at one point.
Awesome. Yeah, that felt good.
Was just wild. Because I'd like to tell this story again, and we've mentioned this. We've referenced this event before, but I'd like to do it again now because a year and a half ago, or I think it was in May, I think, April or May, about a year and a half ago, the city arranged a documentary screening at the Empire, the same place. I think it was different sponsors. I need to look that up again to know for sure exactly, but basically, they screened a documentary that was really, really amazing called Faded, which you can also find. We've shared it before. I'll share it again. My friend Maylee Smith, who grew up here in Grand Forks, she made this documentary. The city, I think the university, maybe somebody else, whoever sponsored it, I think paid her to create this, empowered her to create this really great documentary. It was super well done. It included a lot of interviews with people I went to high school with who've died from drugs, and interviews with their parents, and interviews with other kids we grew up with who were in jail. She went interviewed somebody in jail in the documentary. She also interviewed an undercover police officer who was in shadows and some other stuff. It was really, really good. And they screened this documentary at the Empire. I think it was about 45 minutes long, and they had a panel afterwards, and the panel was up there, and we've told this story before, but the panel took a very just say no approach to how are we going to handle all of these stories we just learned about from this documentary. A very anti-harm reduction kind of approach in a lot of specific senses. It's not to say everything that came out of that was bad or a waste of time or anything, but I was there, I was watching, and I was a little scared. I was really scared that was the tone the city was going to take. And talking to Mei Lee after that event, she said she was shocked that the panel took that tone because it's not her tone. She has a harm reduction kind of tone. Anyway, what's really amazing is we made a video about that panel, and that video won the UND Psychedelic Club 2 trips to Washington, D.C. that year to speak at the Nizam Institute at these conferences about sensible drug policy and free speech and stuff in D.C. And it was really cool. We met a lot of friends, and we thought we did a good job showing what the moment we captured in that video was really a member of the UND Psychedelic Club asking a question, really sincerely worded question, and then one of the panelists kind of yells at him and says, "That's a stupid question," and then the student kind of lashes back at that and sort of then insensibly says something back at the panelist, and then the whole crowd at the Empire laughed at this student who was there asking questions, like trying to support this community vibe. And they honestly laughed him almost out of there. Like when we left as a group, as a UND student organization, we all felt bad. We felt like we had done a bad job at connecting with the city people, if that is who the panel was sort of representing at that time. And we felt like, okay, we learned there's a huge disconnect here between some of the younger people and maybe some of the other people. But that was the gist of the video that brought us to this thing. Blah, blah, blah. Cut now to last week. Not actually is anybody laughed at, but the president of the Psychedelic Club is on the panel, and he is, in fact, interrupted by applause at one point.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Dude,
absolutely wonderful.
Can you even imagine the difference? And I talked to some of the people who were there at the panel a year and a half ago, and a couple of them said straight up, they're like, dude, I was wrong last year. I think we were wrong last year. It's what they told me. And I was like, holy cow, that seems like a big change. And they're like, yeah, I think it is a big change, and it's still changing. And, we all got to keep still changing with our ideas on these things if we're ever going to stay on top of it. And wow, that was the coolest thing. And then just to realize that it's symbolized by, we have footage of last year, Psychedelic Club member being laughed out of there. Now we have footage of you being interrupted by applause, dude. That's just cool.
How awesome. We successfully connected. I think we conveyed, that the questions, that this guy last year was asking was geared, and what we're geared toward now is helping. We want to help. We want to open doors, to success for people like me, people that have addictions and, things like that. We just want to help. We want to do something positive.
And there would be no way for us to do that if there wasn't a community support system in there.
Yep.
And walking out of the Empire last week, I felt like there is a community support system, and perhaps there always was. And perhaps the event last year, or my perspective of it, was more negative than it needed to be, or was not really representing how everyone in the city feels.
Sure.
But when, because a lot of things were said that night, but the one thing that was easiest to remember was the fact that a student was laughed out of there. Perhaps my perspective wasn't right from the beginning, but it sure feels like change is occurring.
Yeah. Either way, I felt the support at that event, and I feel it's pushing us, it's giving us a little momentum, and it feels great.
Yeah, and whether it's just the students or the police or the therapists or the hospital people or the academics, none of them, no matter how sincere or well supported their perspective is going to be able to solve the whole problem on their own, or is going to be able to even do their part to their fullest without everybody else acting in their parts too. So I liked how you got us talking about a community support system, because that is definitely what we need. And I think that's what the needs assessment that the city is thinking about doing in the next few months is aiming to find out exactly. What do the people who are involved in this need?
Yeah, that's the lady next to me, Mrs. Reed, the licensed addiction counselor. She brought up a good point about, again, speaking to the importance of community. She was talking about how there's this general understanding that when it comes to addiction and recovering from addiction, it's all about intrinsic motivation. It's people have this idea that the desire to get clean, it always comes from within the individual. And the point she made was that that's not true. And in fact, in many cases, it's largely the opposite. It's those extrinsic outside community supports, parental supports, and friend supports that are actually the main reasons that people find themselves in treatment. So, again, it's community. This is a community thing that we can totally band together and do this. We absolutely can help people as a community.
Yeah.
And we just all have to recognize that we want to do that. The community has to accept, first of all, that they can and that we can do that, and then secondly, that we want to do that, and then, take the steps to do so.
Right. And it's going to be very fun to see how it all keeps changing. And do you think, people need data behind all of these decisions for us to know what does work? Or, if we said, okay, what if we could do this treatment option as a community, make this available? Well, we want to know that it's going to be worth the investment.
Right.
And so we have to use data that supports these things before we just start willy-nilly, doing things.
Sure, yeah.
So the city is looking at starting a syringe exchange program, which is wonderful. Just this morning, I was in Minneapolis and I met with somebody from the Minnesota AIDS Project, which is a completely state-funded organization that the guy Jake I was seeing today, he told me that they take in up to 250,000 used syringes every year, and they give out nearly just as much, maybe slightly more. I forget which way he said that, but basically 250,000 syringes that would be laying in someone's dumpster or on someone's street corner.
Yep, in the Costco garbage can, the Walmart garbage can. That's what I know a lot of people would end up doing that, just throwing them in a garbage can.
And that's if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Sometimes people throw these syringes in, say, like a milk jug or something, but then it ends up getting recycled, and the people at the recycling plant get poked because they're dealing with this stuff.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Kids walking down on the Mississippi River in Minneapolis will step on syringes. And I've seen syringes down by the coulee, down by the Red River here, downtown, on the street. And it's like, okay, why is that there? In bathrooms, at gas stations and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
So you see, there are usually there are safe needle drops, sharps containers in a lot of truck stop bathrooms and stuff like that. You've seen those in bathrooms, haven't you? Those boxes, a big needle on it. And when I was young, I had no idea what that was. I was like, what is that? And I think I'd ask about it, and I never got a straight answer, And it truly never even made sense. Like, are there needles in there? Am I supposed to take one if I need them? No, it's a dumpster for needles. And as a child, or I guess younger me, didn't understand at all what that meant or why, what that was. So even in Grand Forks, we are used to the concept of sharps containers being available in certain public places where people may be injecting drugs. And wouldn't you rather see the needle in that sharps container than in sitting on top of the paper towels in the trash can next to it.
Yeah, there's harm reduction. There's like small scale syringe exchange right there.
Yes. Well, yes. I'm pretty sure there are no clean needles in there. Maybe there are.
No, but
yeah, the thing about Minnesota AIDS Project, or if Grand Forks had a syringe exchange program, it would serve that purpose. Allow you to say you are somebody who injects drugs. You need a place to get rid of these old needles, and you need a place to get clean ones. Did you ever find yourself in that situation when you were injecting drugs back in the day?
Luckily, no. As you know, I'm type 1 diabetic since I was 5 years old, so I always had access to clean syringes. I don't know, but that is potentially part of what ties into my whole cascade into drug addiction. Somebody I had met that was into opioids and injecting opioids, noticed that I had syringes, and he sort of befriended me, and I befriended him. He was nice and charismatic, and we, eventually, I ended up shooting up.
Interesting. So there could be a tendency for me to ask, do you think having those clean needles in your syringes in your possession made you more likely to inject drugs?
I'm not entirely sure. Probably not.
One thing it definitely did was it ensured you weren't using a dirty syringe. Mm-hmm. That's probably not a good term either. A used syringe, because that's I think how HIV
hepatitis
spreads.
C as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe the syringes having daily injections. Like I would inject myself with insulin up to 10 times a day.
Wow.
Just every time I ate.
Do you use a new syringe every time?
Yep. New syringe every time. So perhaps I was desensitized to the idea of injecting drugs into my body because I had been doing it all my life. Since I can remember, I was using syringes. So perhaps I was desensitized a little bit in that regard. Always
interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think would have happened? Your friend you described, he needed clean syringes, it sounds like. And so if he didn't have them, what would he do? Or, if you didn't have them and you were needing to inject a substance into yourself, what would you have done?
I've seen people use just nasty looking needles, bent and just all bent up and clearly used. The ink, the markings, the numbers, the indicators have been rubbed off because they've been used so many times. And I've seen people use those and further pass them to the next person.
Wow.
Rinsing them off in the sink, or thinking that they can run a little bit of bleach through the syringe and get rid of the AIDS and the hepatitis C. And I don't know, whether that works or not, but that's not what you want to be counting on. You don't want to be counting on that, especially, when you consider that the people doing that could recover, are likely to recover with community support and find themselves in a position like me, contributing back to society. I think it's very easy. There's a tendency to say, to see somebody that's doing that, using these old rugged needles, passing them around in a situation like that, it's easy to see them as like, they're so far gone, whatever. But I was there, not necessarily passing the syringe around, but I was in that situation, and most addicts share that same sentiment, that they want to be contributing, they want to feel important and do something important.
Somebody could have looked at you at that point and said, "This guy is too far gone.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
We shouldn't invest another cent into him.
Yeah, absolutely.
The city shouldn't even pay for a box for him to throw his old syringe away in."
Yep.
And that's nuts, because look at you, today.
Yeah. The small investment to get people into recovery and just the open-mindedness can mean the world. It can mean a person contributing to society and doing something good for society, giving value to society, or a never-ending drug addiction where they feel used and useless.
So it was months before we started the Harm Reduction Report, which you are listening to right now on KEQQ 88.3 FM. My mother listens to a lot of radio in Grand Forks, a lot of local radio. And she is the queen of winning stuff on the radio.
Oh, okay.
If anybody needs WeFest tickets or something that you can win on the radio, just let me know. Because
Your mother will win them?
yes, I'll hook you up with my mom, and you won't. Don't even worry about it. You'll go. One time recently, my mother pulled me out. Actually, I think she came home for her lunch break. I think, and I was inside, and she told me to come out into the car with her. I was like, "What the heck's going on?" So I walked out into the driveway and got in the car with her, and she was listening to the radio, and she explained to me that the conversation they were having right now is about a syringe exchange program, or actually, I think it was about a safe injection site.
Okay.
So maybe we should chat about that for a second before I go on. What is the difference between a safe injection site and a a syringe exchange? Whoops! Well, that was a cool sound.
These mics.
Yeah. So with a syringe exchange, I think how it works is you basically come with your old used syringe, you hand it over, and you get a clean one, maybe more than one, I'm not sure. And I think you also check in with the people you're getting this from, and they keep some track of you. I was told today that at least at the Minnesota AIDS Project, they don't have people leave their name so that it can be anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
But what they do leave is sort of this code. It's like the first letter of your last name, and then a number, a day you were born or something. And
Interesting.
they have an identifier that's specific to you, but it's not your name and it's not all your information.
It's anonymous, yeah, to incentivize that you use the program.
Yeah, so you can come in, you leave your syringes, and you get syringes, and I think you also are asked or reminded, like, you can get counseling here too, and you can get access to other resources, medical resources, therapeutic resources, everything else.
So there's that support.
Right. Support. However, it's totally based around the fact that you're taking the syringe away, and you're not doing it here, right? A safe injection site, which I believe there are definitely lots of them in Europe. I believe there are some in Canada too. In Toronto, maybe a place where that's going on. We should look up some headlines and discuss it if we want to do that soon. But a safe injection site means like that you can come bring in old syringes and get new syringes, but also you inject your drugs, your substances right there.
Yep.
And who is there? Nurses and doctors and people who are going to be standing right over you. So if you were to overdose yourself, you bring in your own substances. So I think how it works is you bring in your own substance, and whether you have a needle or not, they'll give you one. They'll sit you down with doctors around you while you do this, and they'll monitor you, and they'll do that other stuff too. They'll check in with you about getting these other resources or going to therapy or these other things too. I've heard one story from a place they're trying to get a safe injection site going in Seattle, and there was a professional talking about why the city should support this, and he said sometimes when they're coming in for needles or for syringes, and then they never come back. We don't know what happens to them. We don't know if they're not using anymore, if they're just using less safely, or if they're dead or anywhere else. Right. We just don't know. And so it's so great that when they are coming in that they do that. So my mother pulled me out into the car to listen to this conversation on the radio. I forget what station or whatever, but it was about, should we have a safe injection site in Grand Forks? And man, it was really hard to listen to this conversation because it was very negative against the idea. Mm-hmm. The people, the hosts, and I think people calling in were very against the concept of it. And my mother was encouraging me to call in and to participate in this conversation.
Right. And
I probably should have, just to sincerely, weigh in, not to call in like you're all wrong or something. Mm-hmm. That would obviously just increase the division between people with different ideas, right? Our goal is to constantly find any common ground we can with all these people, bring them together on the things we do agree on, and et cetera, right? So in this moment, she told me to call in and hey, why don't you call in and try to find some common ground with these people with your ideas, which might not be theirs. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. I was just sad. I thought it was hopeless, I guess. Right. I thought if I call in, all it would do is lead to an argument, or even if it didn't lead to an argument, it would just further, it would backfire somehow. I was afraid it would backfire, and I was too afraid to even lend my opinion. And that's too bad. Maybe I should have had more courage, you know? That's kind of a stigma story in ourselves. But I guess I just think it's funny now that it just crossed my mind. Like, okay, here we are on the radio talking about safe injection sites.
Yeah.
And I don't want our conversation to just be the opposite of that conversation, to just be like the what somebody might call the left-wing version of another conversation or something, you know, along those lines. That's not what I want.
Yeah. Before we came recording tonight, we were talking about, you know, we want to set up more interaction with the community, and you know, we're totally aware that talking about this on the radio, there's going to be people listening right now, this very second, that disagree with this idea of the safe, the syringe exchanges and stuff. And, you know, the value in having the ability for people to leave comments or to call in and stuff, you know, we want that. We are willing to hear the other side. We're willing to have people disagree with us just so we can open up and have that conversation and, you know, discover, you know, understand what we can do. How do we meet in the middle? How do we, you know, what is the right answer? How do we work on this together?
And totally best, of course, if we don't see ourselves as being even on one side of something, you know, where other people are. But when we're talking about it, it keeps coming out that way. But you know, on what side of what anyway? Everybody here in town knows that drugs are a problem, and that what we're doing isn't good enough, and what we've been doing isn't good enough. So we all agree on that.
Yeah, we're on the same side.
Yeah, fewer kids to die, fewer kids to go to jail, more people productively paying their taxes and you know, raising their kids.
Yeah,
that's what we want. So. Oh, man, I'm always worried when we get into territory that I know is controversial or that includes a lot of disagreements, that we are going to make the disagreements worse.
Yeah, we're going to encounter some backlash for sure, and maybe some flack. But like you said, we want to reach the appropriate conclusion together. You know, we want to have...
Yeah, and how are we going to do that? With data, with facts and people's stories, like any journalist or scientist, a good one, who's going out to find an investigator. Yeah. We need data to support any kind of action you're gonna take or something. So what kind of data do we need? I'm not sure, but I would be very surprised, I think, if... The folks who my mother showed me talking on the radio very negatively about needle syringe exchange, if they had ever visited one,
right?
Or like this morning, I talked to a lot of people at the Minnesota AIDS Project who are very involved in this, and it didn't take long. I mean, it'd be hard for me to say to these people right to their face what I was hearing on the radio that day.
Yeah,
it would just be crazy because it was so obvious to me what benefit it had to them. They were sitting across the table from me, and they're like, I know people who are alive because we did this. And that was data for me, because I had never heard those stories before one-on-one. That was data, and I had to put that in my little bank, my little library in my head, and try to make sense of it. And without that data, I'd be making worse decisions. So what is the data? Alan Watts, a Zen philosopher guy, is a British dude from the 60s. Really great. Look up Alan Watts if you're interested in Alan Watts on addiction. There's a lot. We'll probably do a whole episode on it on A Watts someday. He one. It's just it kind of applies to a lot of topics, but he says, you know, the story where four people approach a mountain from 4 different directions, and they each write a book about it. They each have their own deep perspective of this mountain, but of course none of them are going to come even close to fully describing the nature of this mountain unless they all sat down together, shared each other's data, shared each other's stories, what is there, and listened to each other, and then put those together. So the more eyes we have on something, and then the more communication between those heads that those eyes belong to, the better data we'll have to make the decisions that might be best. So I guess when it comes to this, this morning was really great for me for that reason, because I got data I never had before. I assumed that syringe exchange programs are good. as the people on the radio I heard the other time didn't assume that. But I may not have had like enough data to fully say why.
Yeah.
And just today added a lot of data, and it may not be still the full story, but it was information I had not had before. It was a perspective I had never considered before in such a way. People telling me firsthand, and it meant a lot to me. So instead of just complaining about these other people on the radio or calling in and yelling at them and calling them all stupid or any other kind of label I could say, that would be a horrible idea. That would not serve our point, I don't think. But to somehow provide data and experiences to all of these things so that together we can all see what's going on better. I guess we all just need more tolerance and an ability to listen to each other more.
Yeah, a little bit of patience.
Patience.
Consider like you had pointed out. You assumed that syringe exchanges were a good thing without necessarily having a lot of data, which in my opinion was a safe assumption. But it's important to recognize that a lot of things we're just kind of assuming, based on what we've heard in the past or based on this or that. But, the more data we can get we want to consider everything and then get data to support whatever the right answer is.
Yeah.
Got some loosely connected ideas there.
Yeah. Oh, man. So how do we do that? It's going to be our challenge constantly. I'm very excited for the day when we finally are doing this live, and we're comfortable with ourselves to be taking calls and stuff, because I think I know now that there are people interested in this in the community who, from time to time at least, actually listen to this program. So we are doing the listeners a disservice by having it be you and me every time, just talking. I think we've done an okay job at including other perspectives, and when we have a guest on or something, our friends. But yeah, mainly they're our friends and people we are already kind of close with or maybe somewhat agree with. It'd be really cool if we had more people on the show who definitely disagreed with us on certain topics, or who we don't even have an agreement or a disagreement status with. We're just trying to learn their experiences and integrate them in our experiences. Especially taking live calls would probably be the greatest way we could prove this point we're saying right here, where we're trying to be open, and we're not just trying to talk at everyone. But this episode, basically exactly what we're doing. Yeah, we're just talking.
I think so. I think opening up the phone lines to the viewers, it's an intimidating idea to be talking about the needle exchange, the syringe exchange, and then having people call in and disagree with us. But that is going to be such valuable feedback, because there are going to be numerous people that share that opinion of the caller disagreeing with us, and for the viewers to observe that, listen to that process of us going back and forth and considering each other's perspectives, that'll be very valuable.
Yes, and the way that you said that just got made me realize, usually the disagreement or agreement is not there. Like we said a second ago, the agreement is there. We don't want more people to die. We don't want more people to go to jail. And so focusing on that seems like a doable thing. We gotta do it. We gotta talk to more people, I guess. So I was kind of looking forward to this episode, recording this tonight with you, Cal, because I felt like, so this is our 10th episode. We've done this for 10 weeks.
Wow.
It's we've gotten more comfortable every single time. One of those episodes was a live broadcast from the Empire. This is our first episode in the studio, though not live right now. In the meantime, since we're not doing live shows yet, I think we'll get there very, very soon, as soon as our schedules allow us to get in here. And I hope once we do it once, we can do it a few times in a row. And maybe we will just start doing these pre-recorded episodes when one of us is out of town on Tuesday night when we want to go live or something. We'll have to work on that. We're getting closer. I want to make sure that we are explaining that we definitely want to reach out to everybody who's potentially listening to this. And so before and after we finally start doing live broadcasts, we will be able to take calls because Noah's studio and KEQQ radio station is so cool. We can take calls live on the air, and they can be recorded at the same time, and it's really great. So we should do that. Until we're there, and even after we're there, you can find all of the episodes posted on the Sandbagger News YouTube page, as well as the UND Psychedelic Club Facebook page. And you can always listen live on KEQQradio.com. Or, if you're in Grand Forks, tune to 88.3 FM. I want to call it 88.3 FM G-Funk, but I think there's rules that it has to be the full...
Yeah,
I think it has to say Grand Forks afterwards. Okay. Anyway, that's just a little thing.
Yeah, so I want to take this minute to encourage our listeners to visit the YouTube channel and leave comments. Leave discussion topics, discussion ideas, any disagreement that you have. Leave it in the comments section, and we'll bring it up next episode. If you agree with something, or if there's something you want to ask us, go ahead, do that on our YouTube channel or the Facebook page as well. That'd be great. That'd be fun.
And also email the radio station at keqqradio.com. That's where I was trying to say a second ago, is that after the Empire event, Noah showed me the radio station got all these emails from local people saying we're interested and we want to be involved and stuff, and that was really great. However, some of the people who left us feedback didn't leave any contact information.
Okay.
And or even an email address, so we can't even respond. So if anybody is listening now who emailed us about the show last week, please consider emailing again, because there is a high likelihood you didn't happen to leave your email address. I asked Noah about that, and he said, well, it's tough because before, when people submit a comment, they have to leave their email address. But a couple people complained saying, like, why do you need my email address? And valid point. So they removed the requirements. But now some of the people who actually want to reach out to us and have us call them back didn't leave their email address. So we were unable to identify them and call them back. So anywho, if you happen to submit a comment in any of those ways, on YouTube, on Facebook, or send us messages too. Send us the UND Psychedelic Club Facebook page, or message the Sandbagger News YouTube Google account. That'd be solid. And at sandbaggernews.org, there's a contact me thing on the bottom of the website too. And we really want to talk more to people, because not just to talk and to incorporate your perspectives with ours and integrate all of these perspectives and add to this wonderful pool of knowledge we're trying to create for everybody, so the community has more data to make these hard decisions, but also because there are real opportunities of stuff going on. Like the city is looking, they have some money to do some projects, which even just a little bit of money to help someone do something, like they subsidized my time working the soundboard at the Empire the other night, which is so cool. And I'm so grateful that they, had something in their budget to give back to a community member to help the community event go well, whatever. Yeah. The city's working on lots of ideas where they need people to be in these videos that I'm helping them make, and there's lots of other things going on too. And definitely, they are, for the needs assessment, the city is looking for people who are around injecting substances, who want to take this survey. And if you take this survey, the city's got these cool incentive packs for doing this. It includes some naloxone, I think, and I think maybe syringes, and I think there was also other harm reduction stuff in there. There was, I think, some condoms in there too, and other things, information, a lot of good stuff. Michael Dulis should explain to you. These incentive bags were sweet, and and so we need to help Michael and the city connect community members to a lot of these opportunities and projects going on. And if you reach out to us, then that's how we'll be able to do that. So I was super, super amazed, and my heart, I could feel my heart warming when Noah showed me all those emails that the station got after the Empire event, that people said, like, I know someone who's struggling and they need help. And so those people, anybody who's listening who is one of those people who knows somebody who needs help or who needs something, if there's any way we can help you connect to something, please reach out. And if you think there might not be, reach out anyway, and we might surprise each other. We probably know somebody who went to school with each other anyway. Yeah. Let's get talking. And I really hope that the first time we do take live calls, it would be another one of those heartwarming. I'm gonna freak out our first caller, dude. I'm gonna be like, thank you for calling. Like, wow, you actually called. You know, even if you want to rip into us about a certain topic or something we said, or just before we do, thank you for calling, because just by doing that, you've brought us closer to getting a picture of this mountain. You know, I feel every time we do talk that it is adding to my view of the mountain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, I hope that we're not just regurgitating things that we're saying or trying to bolster the ideas we already have in our heads about what's right and what's wrong and just, you know, confirm them back and forth again. I don't think that's what we're doing, but we gotta continually remind ourselves and check up on ourselves. Is that what we're doing?
Right.
And I think the best way to do that is by talking to other people.
More people.
Yeah.
More people. And
so, what I really hope the Harm Reduction Report can do for the next few months is serve as a place where nobody is going to be afraid to call in. Like, I was afraid to call in that other station when my mom showed me that discussion that was going on. I was afraid to call in. I want to have a station where everybody can feel comfortable calling in, and that the people sitting behind the microphone are not gonna laugh at you or yell at you or say you're wrong, but we're gonna listen, and at every point along the way we will stop and remind each other that we are on the same mountain.
Well said.
And we have the same intention regarding this mountain. If you want to talk on the air or off the air, that's something we should make clear. We won't talk about whatever you want to message us about if you don't want us to talk about it, but we are very, very, very interested in meeting you, because it's crazy how one thing can lead to another. Crazy. A year and a half ago, the UND Psychedelic Club was laughed out of the Empire. Last week, President of the Psychedelic Club is on the panel. He's interrupted by applause, and we got to broadcast it to a bunch of people who said that they were glad we did so. So that's a big change. So let's try to surprise each other, and let's try to work together and do some good old sandbagging on this mountain here. Sandbag on, everybody. Thanks.
Sandbag on.